Would you believe me if I told you that a stray dog, abandoned by everyone, saved a human life? Not by instinct, by choice. And that's why this story will stay with you forever. It shows how an animal that had nothing ended up saving everything. The city was waking up, still wrapped in mist. The streets remained silent as the first sounds of the day barely scratched the air. Among forgotten alleys and narrow paths, a small shadow moved slowly. A dog, thin, silent, with a vacant look, as if he had seen too much and expected too little. He walked without hurry, but with purpose. His bones stood out under his dirty coat. His makeshift collar, a faded piece of cloth, hung loosely around his neck, like an echo of a past that no one remembered anymore. At first glance, he was just one of the countless invisible souls drifting along the sidewalks of indifference. But that day would be different. Among crushed cans, torn bags, and damp paper scattered across a vacant lot, he sniffed something different, a scent that wasn't food, a sound that didn't come from the wind, something alive. And that's how it all began. This story will touch you. Not because it's about tragedy, but because it shows that even among the ruins of pain, hope can still blossom. Sometimes the greatest heroes have 4 paws, tired eyes, and no home. If the stories we share warm your heart, filled with kindness, subscribe to the channel. Believe me, every subscription makes a difference and helps us move forward. It supports us in covering the costs of food, medicine, and rescues. Our goal is to bring real stories of animal resilience, and each view brings us closer to sharing more of these incredible journeys. In the description and comments, you'll find details on how to learn more about our project, and if you'd like, how to support us. No rush, just with love. Now, we want to hear from you. Share your pet's story with us. It might just be the inspiration for our next video. This channel is a place of refuge, memories, and lives that truly matter. Here, every life counts. So before you move on, take a deep breath and open your heart. Because today, you'll meet the dog who, despite being forgotten by everyone, chose to make a difference. He didn't understand why. One day he got in the car wagging his tail, happy as always. The wind blew through the open windows, ruffling his short golden fur. He thought they were going to the park, or maybe visiting that aunt who always scratched his ears. But the car didn't come back. The door closed, the engine roared, and he was left there, standing, looking at nothing, his heart pounding in the silence that followed. In the first few days, he waited. He always sat in the same spot, in front of the low wall where he used to lie, eyes fixed in the direction where the car had disappeared, his head tilted slightly at every engine sound, as if any moment that door would open again, with someone calling his name. But no one came. Days stretched into weeks, weeks blurred into time, and time gradually erased everything. Hunger came before anger, longing arrived with the cold, and fear followed, like a constant chill on his back. The fear of never seeing a familiar face again, of never feeling a gentle touch, of just being another forgotten soul in the world. He didn't know how to hate. Even after being abandoned, his gaze remained gentle. Every time someone walked by, he would tilt his head, stretch his neck as if asking, "Do you know me? Do you want me?" No one answered. He sought affection in the shadows, slowly approached squares and gates, low walls, and crowded sidewalks. Sometimes he got crumbs, other times a harsh gesture. He learned to back away at the right time, not to trust too much, but never entirely lost hope. And even so, he kept coming back. He returned to the same spot, always, as if something there still called him, as if the scent of memories was still embedded in the concrete, as if the past might one day remember him. There, on that corner, between longing and dust, he was relearning how to be strong, alone, but whole. Each slow step he took wasn't just out of exhaustion. It was waiting for a glance that recognized him, for an outstretched hand, for a new beginning. And little did he know, he was about to find much more than that. The city was in a hurry. Cars, footsteps, horns, but for him, everything moved slowly, as if the world had lost its sound, leaving only blurry images of a life that moved on without looking back. He slept wherever he could. A piece of cardboard became his bed. A stairway gap, his shelter. When it rained, he sought out empty porches. When the sun was too strong, he hid behind dumpsters, where the shade smelled of rust and old trash. His body had grown accustomed to discomfort, the ache of hunger, the chill of dawn, the hardness of the ground. But what hurt the most was being invisible. People passed by as if he wasn't there. Some avoided him. Others quickened their pace. A few, very few, stopped to look. And when they did, he still wagged his tail, just for a moment. Then he'd lower his head again. Water came from puddles, shallow, murky, stained with oil or soap, but it was all there was. He learned to wait for the rain, to hurry to places where he knew the ground would give way and collect water. He ate whatever the wind carried, what fell from someone's lunch, what was tossed aside without thought. But he never lunged. Even with his ribs pressing against his skin, he didn't fight other dogs, didn't tear into bags, didn't trespass into yards. There was a sad gentleness in him, like someone who knew the world didn't owe him anything, but still refused to be cruel. He was lonely, but not bitter. Sometimes he saw kids running in the park, and he'd move away, afraid of frightening them. Other times he saw someone put food in an improvised bowl, and he waited. He waited for the other dog to eat first, as if he had forgotten that he too deserved it. And yet, he still wagged his tail. He still looked at people with curiosity, still followed from a distance, a couple laughing loudly, as if the memory of a home still lived inside him. He still approached gas stations, where attendants sometimes whistled and gave him a random name for a few minutes. But he listened. Day after day. That was his life. Survival had become more of a quiet exercise than an act of strength. And even though he was invisible, even though he was forgotten, he kept going, step by step, nose to the ground, eyes alert to any sign of life. Because somewhere, he still believed, something good could happen. The lot looked forgotten by time, and by people. It was nestled between two abandoned buildings, where cracked concrete gave way to tall weeds and rust. The rusty gate no longer closed properly, and an old sign with faded letters hung from a single nail, swaying in the wind as if whispering stories no one wanted to hear anymore. There, silence reigned, occasionally interrupted by distant noises, cars crossing nearby avenues, muffled horns, far-off sirens. But inside that space, time moved slowly. The ground was hard-packed dirt, littered with plastic bags dancing in the wind, scattered food wrappers, faded cardboard pieces, and remnants of abandoned furniture. The smell was a mix of rotting things, overripe fruit, wet trash, forgotten memories, a sharp, damp odor that was hard to forget. Yet to him, it was a place full of possibilities. There, he searched. Sometimes he found a piece of bread with some taste left, sometimes a chewed-up bone. But what kept him coming back wasn't just hunger. It was the silence. A silence that didn't judge, that didn't kick, that didn't chase him away. It was his refuge, ugly, dirty, but his. He always entered from the same corner, where the fence sagged a little. He slipped through carefully, avoiding the twisted wire. He walked slowly among the piles of debris, sniffing, listening to the rustling of plastic bags and the whistle of wind hitting the metal cans. Sometimes, he slept there, under a torn tarp someone had thrown away. When the wind picked up, he curled his body, covering his nose with his tail. When the sun burned too hot, he found shade near a doorless refrigerator. It was ugly. It was sad. But it was predictable. And for someone who had lost everything, predictability was a comfort. The lot was invisible to most, just an empty spot on the map, a mistake in the landscape. But to him, it was a starting point. And that day, without knowing it, it would also be a turning point. Because there, between the weeds and neglect, something was about to happen. Something his nose hadn't picked up before. Something that wasn't trash. Something alive. And on that cloudy morning, the wind brought not just the smell of stale food, but also a call, a subtle whisper, muffled by the ground. A faint, almost imperceptible sound that made him stop abruptly. His nose lifted. His ears twitched. His eyes squinted. Something was different. And he felt it. The day had barely dawned when he entered the lot. The sky was covered with thick clouds, like a gray blanket weighing down on the city. The wind blew irregularly, sometimes calm, sometimes sharp, kicking up dust and old newspaper scraps dragged among the weeds. He walked as usual, nose down, slow steps, his attention divided between the ground and the surrounding noises. But that day, something made him stop. In the middle of the lot, he froze. The wind changed direction. It brought a new smell. It wasn't food. It wasn't another animal. It wasn't the usual. It was something light, almost imperceptible, but it triggered an old alarm in his instincts. A fragile smell, warm, alive. His nose lifted. His nostrils widened. He sniffed the air intensely. Once, twice, 3 times. His tail, once relaxed, became tense. His ears pointed forward. His whole body stiffened. A nearly inaudible whisper escaped from the foliage, a muffled, trembling sound. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a meow. It was a whimper. He took a step, then another. His eyes, used to the dark, now searched between torn boxes and overturned bags. His heart beat faster, not out of fear, but on alert. He knew every inch of that lot. Knew where the smell of rats lingered, where the odor of rotten food hung, where the plastic melted under the sun. But this scent was new. A weak whimper, like that of a puppy, broke the silence again. The dog moved forward carefully, sniffing every inch, ignoring the trash, dodging broken glass. The sound was close but hidden. His sense of smell was now pulsing. He moved with precision, as if every cell in his body screamed, "Go, now." And then he saw it. Under a pile of wet cardboard, partially covered by an old cloth, there was a small, soaked box, trembling, and inside it, something moved. He approached slowly, touched it with his nose, sniffed again. And at that moment, he sensed life. A fragile smell, sweet, warm, and at the same time, desperate. Deep down, he knew that whatever was in there needed help. It wasn't another dog. It wasn't prey. It was human, small, newly arrived in the world. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just sat down and stayed there, watching, guarding. Something inside him, something never taught but always there, told him he couldn't leave. Something was wrong, and if he left, maybe it would be too late. The damp cloth covering the box trembled slightly, as if breathing. The dog approached more carefully this time, step by step, nose close to the ground, eyes fixed on that cardboard rectangle that seemed to pulse. The wind stopped, as if the world had held its breath. He sniffed the side of the box. The smell of newborn skin, of stale milk, of absolute fragility filled the air. Along with it, the smell of cold, of abandonment, and of despair. A muffled cry repeated, weak, as if life itself was already giving up. And then he understood. Inside that box was a baby. Too small, too fragile, too alone. For a moment the dog pulled back, his head tilted. His eyes, usually dull from street life, now widened. That sight stirred something deep inside him. It wasn't just instinct. It was pain. It was connection. It felt like looking at himself years ago, also left behind, to fend for himself. Without thinking, he moved closer again. With his nose, he gently pulled the damp cloth, revealing the small face flushed from the cold. The baby's eyes were closed. The lips moved slowly, without sound. The body shivered. And then, without warning, he lay down, right next to the box, his thin body pressed against the cold cardboard, his head close to the baby, his nose still, his warm breath. He didn't know if it would help, but he knew warmth was all he had to offer. And at that moment, it was everything. Time passed slowly. The wind returned, but he didn't move. The plastic bags rustled, but he didn't lose focus. His eyes scanned the lot, alert for any approach, any threat, any chance of help. But he wouldn't leave. Not as long as that small, unjustly treated life depended on his warmth. That's how he decided alone, without anyone telling him what to do, that he would stay on guard. Like an unlikely soldier, a guardian with dirty paws, kind eyes, and a giant soul. There, between the trash and the forgotten, two invisible beings found each other, and for the first time in a long while, neither of them was truly alone. The afternoon slowly slipped across the sky, tinting the clouds gray and orange. Shadows stretched out like long fingers, covering the vacant lot with a veil of silence. The wind grew colder, more persistent, and he was still there, lying next to the box. The dog didn't move. His breathing remained steady, though tired. His eyes blinked rarely, alert to every sound, every rustle of plastic, every distant brake noise. His body curled up, trying not only to shield himself from the cold, but also to protect that tiny, vulnerable life sleeping inside the box. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since morning, hadn't drunk any water, but none of that mattered now. There was something bigger at stake, something he couldn't name but felt with everything he had. Responsibility. Night fell again, slowly, like a heavy blanket. The city lights flickered far away, indifferent. None of them lit up that forgotten corner. No human hand reached out. No eyes noticed. But he stayed. The cold intensified. The damp cloth covering the box began to stiffen with the wind. The edges quivered. The baby made soft, weak noises, as if fighting silently against something it didn't understand. Every time it did, the dog moved closer, pressing his nose against the cardboard as if saying, "I'm here. Don't give up." Hours passed. The sky grew completely dark. High above, the moon timidly appeared between the clouds. A plane crossed the sky, its lights flashing, oblivious to what was happening below. The once roaring streets now whispered. The world slept. But he didn't. He remained still, like a living stone. His body ached. His joints protested. Exhaustion weighed him down. But he endured. There was something about that baby that warmed his already worn-out soul. Maybe because there was someone even more defenseless than him, someone who couldn't even seek shelter. And that night, in the freezing air, the dog did the impossible. He became a shelter. Not with a roof, but with warmth, with presence, with love. Dawn was approaching. And with it, the hope that someone, at some point, would see, hear, feel. But until then, he would wait. Even if it meant waiting forever. The sun had not yet risen. The night air was heavy, damp, filled with silence. The city slept. Most of it, at least. Almost. On the other side of the neighborhood, dragging footsteps crossed dirty sidewalks, pushing a shopping cart transformed into a survival tool. The homeless recycler knew the streets by heart. He knew where the trash was more promising, where bars left empty bottles, where boxes remained intact. His routine was harsh, but precise. That night, however, something made him change his path. Maybe it was the sound of plastic flapping persistently against the wire. Maybe the moon's reflection on the crumpled aluminum. Or maybe instinct, the kind that drives the forgotten, those living on the fringes, to see what others overlook. He approached the vacant lot, pushed the gate with effort. The rusty creak pierced the silence like a scream. The cart stayed outside. He entered slowly, stepping carefully among the debris. Then he saw it. First, two eyes gleaming in the dark. Then a still silhouette. A dog, lying next to something. A piece of cardboard? A box? The recycler frowned. That wasn't usual. The dog didn't look aggressive, but it didn't take its eyes off him either. It was as if saying, "Stay there, but take a good look." He took another step and felt a chill. He moved closer to the box, cautiously, almost with reverence. The cloth was soaked, the cardboard torn at the edges. And inside was the unthinkable. A baby, tiny, curled up, cold. The recycler shivered. For a second he thought he was imagining it. But no, the baby moved. A faint sound escaped. Alive. Still alive. The man recoiled quickly. His hand covered his mouth. Surprised, scared. Moved. And when he looked back, he saw the dog. The same dog. Still. Eyes fixed on him. And in those eyes, there was no fear. There was a plea. Without thinking twice, the recycler turned around. He ran. Up the street, barefoot, shouting for help, banging on doors, calling out to anyone awake. His hoarse voice sliced through the morning chill with urgency. "There's a baby in the lot. There's a baby in the lot. Someone come." At that moment, the cry of an invisible man echoed for two, and the chain of rescue began to form. Red lights sliced through the silence like a scream of hope. The siren wasn't loud. It was low, respectful, as if knowing that there, between the trash and the dirt, there was something more sacred than a rescue. A life on the brink of ending or beginning anew. The firefighters jumped out of the truck with controlled urgency. It was an unusual call. Abandoned baby. Location. Vacant lot. Source. Homeless man. Many would think it was a mistake, but not them. These men knew that the streets often hide truths no one wants to see. With flashlights in hand, they passed through the rusty gate. Guided by the recycler, eyes moist, voice trembling, but steady. He's there. The dog didn't leave his side, not for a second, and there he was. The scene made even the most seasoned rescuer bow his head for a moment. The dog was still by the box. Didn't bark, didn't flee, just watched, as if knowing. They came. Finally, they came. The flashlight illuminated the inside of the box. The baby was there, still breathing, skin cold, eyes half closed, but alive, clinging to the last bit of warmth, the warmth of that stray dog. "There's a note here," said one of the firefighters, pulling out a crumpled, wet piece of paper with the shaky handwriting of a desperate mother. The words were barely legible, but enough to break the air. "Forgive me. His father wanted to hurt me. And him. I ran away. I don't know where to go. I just want him to live. Please take care of him. He's innocent." Silence. No one spoke for a moment. Only the wind, blowing through the cans and bags in the lot, filled the space with a lament felt on the skin. The baby was lifted with the utmost care. Covered. Warmed. A firefighter held him as if carrying his own heart. Another looked at the dog. This one didn't leave his side? Not for a minute? No. He saved him, the recycler said. The firefighter knelt before the dog, reached out slowly. The animal didn't back away, just accepted the touch. A gentle pat on the head. And in that moment, something was sealed. Not with words, but with respect. The dog had done what no human had dared to do. Protect, care, wait. As the baby was carried away, the dog watched them go. Didn't try to follow. Didn't whimper. Just observed. As if saying, "Now he's safe." And there he remained, among the cans in the early morning, between abandonment and a miracle. The baby's crying faded into the distance. The sound of the firefighter's boots echoed across the lot, mixed with the rumble of the rescue truck's engine. The red lights still painted the abandoned walls with pulsating hues, like a heart beating loudly for the first time. But the dog stayed behind. For a moment, he watched it all with calm eyes, as if he understood that his mission had been accomplished. He decided to move on. But as he approached the gate, something changed. The metallic noise made him back away. The scent of fuel mixed with his senses. The voices were many now. Strange. Too loud. Hands reached out toward him. Not with violence. With care, even kindness, but he didn't know that. He couldn't know. He knew abandonment. He knew silence. He knew the streets. But he didn't know how to react to human touch after so long. Then, in a moment of pure instinct, he ran. He bolted as if the whole city were a trap, passed through alleys, slipped through narrow passages, crossed empty streets, and vanished into shadows and smoke. The recycler tried to follow him, whistling softly, but it was no use. The four-legged hero, gone. The following days were a mix of emotion and searching. The story of the baby saved by a stray dog exploded on social media. Local newspapers, TV stations, animal protection profiles. Everyone shared the news. There was admiration, outrage, emotion, but also one question that no one could answer. Where is the dog? Volunteers returned to the vacant lot with food and blankets. They searched at markets, parks, gas stations. The recycler roamed the city, pushing his cart with sharp eyes, asking on every corner. Nothing. It was as if he had been swallowed by the same silence that always surrounded him. Some said he never existed, that the story had been embellished. But those who saw it knew. Those who were there felt it. He was real. And now, he was a ghost. The dog that saved a life, that braved the cold with his own body, that waited all night by a baby, now also needed to be saved. But where? The news spread like wildfire. Stray dog saves abandoned baby in vacant lot. Four-legged hero keeps newborn warm through the night. Furry angel prevents tragedy with touching gesture. The headlines multiplied on websites, newspapers, radio stations, and especially on social media. In the video recorded by one of the firefighters on a cell phone, the baby was seen being carried away, and in the background, almost like a whisper in the scene, the dog's thin figure watched it all with world-weary eyes. And that was when the question arose, moving thousands of people. Where is the four-legged angel? Animal protection profiles posted pictures of similar-looking dogs. Comments poured in. He must be found. This dog saved a life. Now it's our turn to save his. How can an animal that had nothing save everything? Drawings, digital art, and even songs began to circulate. Children wrote letters asking to adopt him. Influencers shared the story with tears in their eyes. Celebrities reposted the image of the box, along with the mother's note. But the bigger the story got, the more painful the dog's silence became. The vacant lot was revisited countless times. Volunteers left food and water in colorful bowls. They set up a makeshift shelter with a sign. "We're waiting for you." Search groups organized. One group scanned the city with drones. Another distributed flyers. Everyone wanted an answer. But the streets remained quiet. The dog seemed to have vanished into the asphalt, as if he had become what he always was to the world. Invisible. Still, no one gave up. Because the story wasn't just about a rescue anymore. It was about redemption, about emotional justice, about giving a name, a home, a hug to someone who had given everything, even the warmth of his own body, for someone he had never seen before. And in the heart of every person touched by that story, there was an unwavering certainty. It couldn't end like this. The hospital smelled of alcohol, cotton, and care. Inside, wrapped in warm blankets and soft lighting, the baby slept, finally safe from the world that, just days before, had almost forgotten him. The doctors called him a miracle. Nurses took turns holding him. Social workers wept after reading the mother's note. He was tiny, yes. Fragile, yes. But he fought with a strength that surprised everyone. When the tests confirmed that he didn't suffer from severe hypothermia and that his vital signs were stable, one of the doctors spoke with a trembling voice. He survived because of that dog's warmth. It was the animal's body that kept him alive during the coldest night of the month. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew it was true. And it hurt, because the savior was still missing. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, a woman opened her home. She was a temporary foster mother, one of those souls who carried a protective instinct in her gaze. She had cared for many babies in extreme situations, but there was something different about this one. The moment she held him, she felt it. Warmth coming from far away. A warmth from another chest, another soul. She prepared a room with soft colors. A lullaby played softly in the background. Plush bears filled the shelves. Yet despite all the care and love, something was missing. A strange silence, like an unspoken absence, and she knew what it was. On the nights when the baby cried, there was a pattern. He didn't cry loudly. It was as if he were searching for a scent, a touch, a warmth that wasn't human. He was looking for the dog. That absence became a presence in every corner of the house. The family spoke about the four-legged hero as if he were there. They welcomed the baby with gratitude, but deep down, they hoped the story would come full circle. And every time they looked at the little one, now stronger, eyes alert, hands gripping firmly, they knew he had survived for two. But the most beautiful part was yet to come. It was just an ordinary morning, one of those that goes unnoticed amid the city's hustle and bustle. The market stalls were being set up. Colorful tents unfolded like timid flowers. The scent of fresh fruit began to blend with the aroma of roasted coffee from a small stand at the corner of the square. That's when she saw him. At first, she thought it was just another stray dog wandering around, looking for scraps or attention. But there was something different about this one. A deep look, a tired but determined gait, and most of all, a frayed cloth around his neck, tied with a simple yet familiar knot. An improvised collar, made of fabric, tied with a firefighter's knot. The lady approached slowly, respecting his silence. The dog didn't growl. He didn't run away. He just watched her with calm eyes, as if he already knew this moment was meant to happen. "It's you, isn't it?" she whispered, barely believing it. She crouched down, gently extended her hand. And when she touched his head, the dog closed his eyes, as if finally finding rest. It was him, the dog everyone was searching for, the hero of that cold night, the baby's guardian. Thinner, yes. His fur still dirty, his eyes a bit more sunken, but whole, alive, and somehow stronger than ever. The lady rushed to a familiar vendor and asked for help. Someone called a local animal rescuer. In no time, a small team was there, with food, a new collar, and a soft blanket. The dog accepted everything in silence, as if saying, "Now I can rest a little." He was taken to a shelter, a simple but welcoming place. He got a bath, warm food, and a medical checkup. He slept for hours, maybe days, as if carrying the exhaustion of a story that no one could fully grasp. And then, something new began. The posts flooded social media. "The dog has been found." Photos of him at the shelter went viral. Comments multiplied. "I'll help with the food. I'll cover the vet bills. He needs a family. He already has mine." Hundreds of adoption requests came in. But there was a sense that his journey wasn't quite over, because somewhere out there, a family was waiting for him. And among them, a baby smiled from his crib. It was just another afternoon at the shelter. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the sound of eager barks. Volunteers cleaned the kennels, refilled water bowls, and chatted quietly. Some dogs barked for attention. Others just watched time pass through the gaps in the fence. He remained quiet, lying down, calm, with half-closed eyes, as if he had accepted his new fate. He no longer expected anything. He had already done more than anyone could have ever imagined. Then the front door opened. A woman walked in, followed by a man, and in her arms, a baby, small, wrapped in a light blue blanket, curious face, attentive eyes. The couple had seen the post about the dog. They recognized the collar, the look, and they decided to come. They weren't entirely sure what they were looking for. Maybe gratitude, maybe closure, maybe just a chance to look into the eyes of the hero who had changed everything. The shelter manager guided them to the dog's kennel. "He's there, still recovering. But he's okay." They approached. The dog lifted his head slowly. He didn't bark. He didn't get excited. He just looked, as if recognizing something old, intimate, and important. And it was the baby who reacted first. A sweet sound escaped his lips. A happy babble. Then, a smile. Wide, unexplainable. He stretched his little arms, almost reaching out to the gate. His legs kicked in the air, as if his soul knew what his body couldn't yet say. "It's him." The woman shed quiet tears. The father, without a word, knelt in front of the kennel. The dog approached. Slowly, nose against the bars. Their eyes met, and at that moment, everything became clear. The bond was still there. It had never disappeared. It wasn't just a memory. It was presence, something deeper, unexplainable, as if both, in their own ways, had been shaped by that same night. As if, somehow, they belonged to each other. The shelter volunteer understood. There was no need to say anything. The decision was made, but the story wasn't over yet. There were no doubts, no debates, no waiting. That same day, with teary eyes and hearts full of tenderness, the family signed the papers. And the dog, the one who had hidden from the world for weeks, left the shelter with light steps, as if finally heading home after a long journey. On his new collar, a simple but meaningful tag hung, "Guardian." Coming home was quiet, almost reverent. The dog walked through the house cautiously. He sniffed the living room rug, glanced at the crib from a distance, paused by the couch as if unseen memories crossed his mind. He didn't ask for anything, just watched, accepting what life was finally offering him. Peace. That night, something magical happened. The baby slept soundly in his room, lulled by a soft lullaby. The moonlight filtered through the swaying curtains. And there, beside the crib, on a plush rug, the dog lay down. No one asked him to. No commands were given. He just knew. He lay close enough to protect, far enough not to disturb, his nose resting on his paws, his eyes fixed on the little one who, in some way, he had chosen, and who had now chosen him back. The mother peeked through the slightly open door. She held back her tears. The father, standing beside her, whispered, "It's like he's always belonged here." That night, no one cried from the cold. No one felt fear. There was no loneliness. There was silence, but it was a full silence, full of love, full of new beginnings. The dog, at last, had a home. And the baby, a guardian. The baby slept peacefully in his room, lulled by a soft lullaby. Moonlight filtered through the fluttering curtain, and there, beside the crib, on a plush rug, the dog lay down. Time passed. The seasons changed. Leaves fell and grew back. Inside that house, where love now lived, two hearts kept beating in harmony. The baby grew. His legs grew stronger, his gaze steadier, his laughter more spontaneous. The eyes that had once squinted against the cold now sparkled with curiosity and joy. He crawled around every corner, closely followed by the one who had become more than just a dog. He was a shadow, a companion, a guardian. The dog changed too. The once rough fur now shone under the morning light. The ribs that once showed through his skin disappeared under layers of care and good food. But the most remarkable change wasn't in his body. It was in his eyes, eyes that finally looked at peace. They grew up together. They were like parts of the same story, inseparable. Wherever the baby went, the dog followed. During those first wobbly steps, it was his nose that provided balance. During the first falls, it was his nose that brought comfort. And among the baby's first words, one of them was the name the family had chosen for him. Guardian. And that's exactly what he was. More than ever, their story continued to inspire. The video of their reunion had millions of views. People sent gifts, drawings, and heartfelt messages. But there was one special moment still to come, an official recognition. On a sunny Sunday, the family was invited to the fire station that had responded to that cold night's call. Guardian was there, with a new collar and a proud stance. Amid laughter and teary eyes, the firefighters knelt before him. They tied a red bandana around his neck, like the ones worn during ceremonies. One of them spoke with a firm voice. "For bravery, loyalty, and unconditional love, we hereby grant this dog the title of civil hero." Applause filled the space. Not because he understood what a certificate meant, but because everyone there knew he had done something beyond words. He had chosen to care. He had chosen to stay. And now, he was no longer alone. In the photo that captured the moment, the baby was in his mother's arms, smiling, and next to him, with half-closed eyes and his nose raised proudly, Guardian. Two survivors, two rebirths, two miracles. Sometimes angels don't have wings. They walk among us with tired paws, weary eyes, and a past that most people don't want to hear about. Sometimes angels come covered in dirt, with scars on their bodies and hearts. But even so, they choose to love. Guardian was one of those. He had no home, no name, nothing. But on that freezing night, when a baby's life depended on a spark of warmth, he gave everything he had. Himself. And he saved a life. Stories like Guardians are not fairy tales. They are real. They happen on the city's corners, in the alleys we ignore, in the vacant lots we choose not to look at. They remind us that true love can't be bought, can't be chosen. It's found, and sometimes it comes from where we least expect. Today, Guardian sleeps at the foot of a crib. He guards dreams with his eyes. He walks around a yard that is now his, And he reminds us of a truth the world keeps forgetting. Angels exist, they just need to be seen. If this story touched you, take a look around. There are thousands of dogs like him. Invisible, loyal, ready to love. They just need a chance. They just need someone to say, "I see you." Adopt, port, share. You can be someone's open door. And if your heart still feels tight, get ready. The next story will move you. Meet Tico, a little dog who defied death and survived a flood, proving that hope, just like him, knows how to swim. Subscribe to the channel, leave your comment, and share it with those who need to believe again in the power of reunions. Because here, every view helps a real rescue, and every story can change a destiny.